Nice is like this, that in Shulchan Aruch, in Hilchis Tishah B'Av, in Siman Tov Kuf Nun Beis, the Mechaber says, Ein oimrim tchina be'erev Tishah B'Av, that mincha, erev Tishah B'Av, we don't say tachanun, mishum de ikri moyed, because Tishah B'Av is called a moyed. The Ramah says that if it's Shabbos, you don't say Tzidkoscha for the same reason. If it's Shabbos, Erev Tishah B'Av. The same thing is in Siman Tov Kuf Nun Tes, L'gabe Tishah B'Av itself, that we don't say Tachanun on Tishah B'Av for that reason, because it's Ikri Moyed. The source of this is in the Ur Zarua in Hilchis Tishah B'Av, who brings in the name of the Avi HaEzri, and in the Reikeach, and in other Rishonim, and all of them just state that Tishah B'Av Ikri Moyed without citing a source. From where do we know that Tishah B'Av is Ikri Moyed? The Kavana is the pasuk in Eicha, in the first kapitel of Eicha. It says, Kara olai moyed lishbor bachuroi. The Pashut Pshat is, Kara been that since the Meraglim, the pasuk says, came back after 40 days, so the cheshbon comes out that if you add a day to Chodesh Tammuz, of Chodesh Tammuz was Molei, so the day that they returned was on Tishah B'Av, and that since they cried that night, that became a designated date, a designated time for the Bechia L'Doros, for the Churban Beis HaMikdash. So in this sense, Kara Olai Moyed Lishbar Bachuroi means that Hashem proclaimed a designated time for crushing my young men. So according to this pshat, Moyed does have a similar meaning to the festivals, because the festivals are a Moyed because they are a designated time. And over here also the word Moyed, according to this pshat, means a designated time. No. So it means a designated time, but Rebbeinu Shalom, does it have any festive dimension? It's all negative. I mean, so why would we say that since the pasuk refers to Tishah B'Av as a Moyed, as a set-aside time, therefore it has some kind of a festive connotation, and therefore we should refrain from saying Tachanun on Tishah B'Av and on Erev Tishah B'Av. It's a Kara Olai Moed Lishbor Bachuroi. There's another fascinating halacha in Orach Chaim, Siman Kuf Lamed Aleph, Siv Dalet. It says, Nohagu sheloi lipoil al pneihem bebeis ha'ovel. That the minig is not to say Tachanun in the home of an Ovel. And the source of this is in the Shibbolei Haleket that's brought in the Beis Yosef over there, that says, Bebeis ha'ovel, ein noiflim al pneihem. And why? Mishum de iskish lechag. We have a hekish that we're makish avelus to chag. The ksiv, there's a pasuk in Amos, v'hafachti chagechem le'evel. I will transform your festivals into a time of mourning. Hilkoch ein oimrim vidui v'tachnunim bebeis ha'ovel. Now this is already, I mean, if what the Rishonim say with regards to Tishah B'Av was shver, I mean, this is like impossible. I mean, the pasuk is saying, "V'hafachti chagechem le'evel." The Navi is threatening that if we don't behave, then our festivals will be transformed into a time of mourning. So over here we have a hekish. We're comparing Avel to Chag, we're contrasting Eivel to Chag. We're saying that if Yidden will misbehave, the Chag will become an Eivel. And from here we learn, says the Shibbolei Aleket and the Shulchan Aruch Paskins, that you don't say Tachanun in the home of an Avil, because it's like Yom Tovdik, because it says, V'afachti Chageichem La'Eivel. Now, the Torah over there in Siman Kuf Lamed Aleph says that you do say Tachanun in the home of an Avil. So it's interesting that the Prisha, he attacks the Torah. He says, I mean, why should the Torah paskin that we say Tachanun in the home of an Avil? What's with the pasuk V'afachti Chageichem La'Eivel? So he says, and don't tell me that the reason is because it's only a Yom Tov for the Avil, but the other participants in the minyan, for them it's not a Yom Tov, and therefore they do say Tachanun. Because he says we see that by a chosen, the Torah paskins that because of his personal, private, individual Yom Tov, the whole minyan doesn't say Tachanun. So over here also, even if it's only Chageichem of the Avil, but that should be enough of a reason that the entire minyan shouldn't say Tachanun. So the Prisha says like this: the Yesh Loimar, the Bish Loimar Gabi Chosen having Moyedi Day Mamish. By the Chosen, it's Mamish a Yom Tov for him, and therefore his Yom Tov impacts the entire minyan. Aval Gabi Oval Einoi Moyed Mamish Elodoim Elamoyed. By the Oval, it's not Mamish a Yom Tov; it's just Doim Elamoyed, and therefore it doesn't impact the entire minyan. That's one teretz. V'oid yesh loimar adarab. Oh, now he comes and he says, I have another pshat. Adarab nirel rabbeinu, that the Torah holds l'midrash ipcha. The Torah holds the darshan fakert. Mi diksiv v'hafachti chageichem la'evel. Since the pasuk says, I will transform, I will turn over your chagim into Eivel Shma Mino, the Ovel Havi Heipech Micha. So you see from here that Avelus and Chag are opposites. Oh, so finally, I mean, he's saying, I mean, what comes to mind at first glance? Nu umikol makom yesh li yashiv divrei shibbolei aleket. Now that I said this, so you're going to wonder, so why does the Shibbolei Aleket say that you don't say Tachanun, and the Shulchan Aruch Paskins like that? So he says, the Kemoisha Motzinu Sha'avoino is Gorimim Sha'achag Nefach La'evel Hu Hadin Haskuyois Yuchlu Ligroim She'yafoi Ha'evel L'chag V'nimtzo Yeh Min Ha'evel Chag V'havidum Yudetishabo. So he says the Shibbolei Aleket holds that since the pasuk says v'hafachti chageichem la'evel, so we see that our sins can cause the yomim tovim to become times of mourning. So, by the same token, we can understand that our schuyos can help that our days of mourning should be transformed into yomim tovim, and therefore the Shibbolei Haleket holds you shouldn't say Tachanun. An Avil shouldn't say Tachanun, just like by Tishah B'Av. No, meaning that by Tishah B'Av, the Torah himself also says that you don't say Tachanun. So he's saying that, this is what he's saying. But, we still have no clue. What does that mean? So if it says, very nice. It says v'afachti chageichem la'evel, that the chagim will be transformed into times of mourning. We can learn from that, says the Prisha, that if we behave, our days of mourning will be transformed into chagim. But how is that a reason that we shouldn't say Tachanun in a Beis HaOvel or on Tishah B'Av? I mean, we're not yet there. I mean, right now, it's a time of mourning. So let it be that we will be zoiche, that it will be transformed into a Yom Tov, but now it's not a Yom Tov. I mean, so why should we not say Tachna? Truth is that this idea that the Rishonim say about Tishah B'Av, that it's considered a Yom Tov, based on the pasuk Kora Olai Moyed, is really not, has no source in Shas or in Midrash Chazal. However, this drasha of Hafachti Chageichem Le'evel, which the Shibbolei Haleket says as a reason for not saying Tachanun in the home of an Ovel, this is a Mefurish Gemara. Not with regards to Tachanun, but it's nevertheless a Mefurish Gemara, because the Gemara in Moed Cotton, Daf Tesvav Amid Beis, says that an Ovel is Asur B'Asiyas Malachim. An Ovel is not allowed to go to work. And from where do we learn this? The Gemara says, the Ksiv, Hafachti Chageichem La'evel. Ma Chag Asur B'Asiyas Malachim. Af Ovel Asur B'Asiyas Malachim. So we see already from the Gemara that in spite of the fact that the Navi is talking about Chag and Evel as opposites and talking about transforming the Chag into an Evel, nevertheless the Gemara says that Ma Chag Osur Basiyas Malacha Af Ovel Osur Basiyas Malacha, that we somehow see over here that the pasuk is comparing the two. The Rambam in Hilchis Ovel Perik Hey Halacha Zayin says remez. He calls this a remez. But now, in spite of the fact that the Gemara makes this hekesh only l'gabi issa malacha, but it's at least, I mean, the taina of the parsha, that adarabah, from the pasuk it seems like these are opposites, so why should we not say tachanun? The taina of the parsha, l'chara, is not a taina, because it's often a Gemara, and in spite of the fact that it's v'alfachti chageichem le'evel, the Gemara sees as a hekesh of ovel to chag, l'gabi asiyas malacha, and who adin, the Shibbolei Haleket is saying l'gabe amiras tachanun. But we still have no understanding what's taka the pshat. Also, what the parsha writes in explaining the shita of the Shibbolei Haleket, that the pasuk is telling us, that we learn from this pasuk, that just like our misbehaving will bring about that the chagim will be turned into an avel, so also our behaving will bring about that our avel will be turned into chagim. As I said, I mean, so, but right now it's an avel, it's not a chag. So what's the meaning of this? So I want to suggest that, when the pasuk says, "V'afachti chageichem la'avel," I will transform your festivals into times of mourning. So the pasuk is telling me that it's not that the chagim will be discontinued. It's not saying that the chagim will become yemei choil. The pasuk is saying the chagim will be turned over, will be transformed into avel. They won't be neutral. They will become from chagim, they will become the opposite. They will become avel. So now, at first glance, this sounds like a harsher statement. I mean, if it would be that the chagim would just be taken away and would become a regular day, no. But not only that, but the chagim will even become an avel. It sounds like it's a harsher punishment. However, in truth, this reflects the eternal connection between the Rebbeinu Shalom and Klal Yisrael, that the Rebbeinu Shalom will never abandon us. The pasuk says in Zechariah, "Ko yomar Hashem tzvokos, Tzayim haravi, v'tzayim hachamishi, v'tzayim hashvi, v'tzayim ha'asiri, yiyu lebeis Yehuda l'sasoin u'lesimche u'lemoyadim toivim." That these days of fast will become sasoin, simche, and moyadim toivim. What's the expression moyadim toivim? Moyadim, we know it's moyadim. What's moyadim toivim? From the expression moyadim toivim, we can understand that there are moyadim that are not toivim, and there are moyadim that are toivim. What does that mean? Because moyed really means meeting. Oyel moyed is a tent of meeting. Moyed is a lotion of hitzvadus, getting together. Now we have moyadim toivim. That's sholosh from bashona. Yeroe kol zchurcha espnei Hashem alokecha. We meet with the Rebbeinu Shalom in the Beis Hamikdash. V'sham na'ale v'neiroi v'nishtacha v'lefanecha. But when we're not worthy, it's not like the Rebbeinu Shalom throws us away. He continues to meet us, but he meets us in moyadim that are not toivim. He meets us through mourning. He meets us in our pain. And that's the idea of v'hofachti chagechem le'evel. Don't think for 1 minute that your chagim will be discontinued and I will no longer meet with you. No. If you won't behave, your chagim will be transformed into evel and I will be meeting you in those circumstances. There's a Gemara in Chagiga Daf Hey that says, Rabbi Yeshua bar Chananya, Havikoi be Keser. He was by the Caesar. Achvi le'ahu apikurse. This apikuris motioned to him somehow. Ame da ahadrinu more la'ape mine. In other words, the apikuris turned away his face from Rabbi Yeshua bar Chananya, and he was motioning that the Jewish people are now a people that the Rebbeinu Shalom turned his face away from them. So Achvilei, Rabbi Yeshua bar Chananya showed him with his hands. Oid yodoi netuya oleinu. His hand is still stretched out on us. Rashi says yodoi netuya lahagein oleinu. His hand is still outstretched to defend us. But the Maharsha comments on this Rashi, and he says, Hai lishne, the yodoi netuya oleinu, this expression, yodoi netuya oleinu, motzinu loy b'sefer Yeshaya bekamo mikrois. We find it several times in the Sefer Yeshaya, this expression. The ksiv, b'chol zois loy shav apoi. With all this, Hashem's anger didn't cease. V'oid yodoi netuya oleinu. The kol ha-mefarshim, v'chein ha-targum, pirshu boi l'ro. He says every place it says in Tanakh, yodoi netuya oleinu, it means for the bad, not for the good. It means that his hand is on us to punish us. So the Maharsha is being bothered. What does it mean that Rabbi Yeshua bar Chananya motioned to him, Oid yodoi netuya oleinu? Oid yodoi netuya oleinu is not a positive pasuk. Oid yodoi netuya oleinu has a negative meaning. So there's a Beis Halevi in the Drushim, in the Shalos HaTshuvah, Seif Chelik Aleph. There's Drushim in the Beis Halevi in Siman Zayin. He says as follows. He says that we have the Tur Paskins in Choshen Mishpat Siman Reish Samach Aleph, that if somebody puts his wallet in the street, it's an Aveda Midas. It becomes Hefker Lakoil, because if you put it down on the street, it means that he has no interest in it. And then maybe it becomes Hefker. But there's a question that the Achronim ask, how could this be? We have a sugi in the end of Perek Ketzad Haregel and Bava Kama, that if somebody throws a kli meirosh hagag, somebody throws a vessel from the roof, uba acher v'shavroi b'makel, and while the kli was coming down, somebody put a stick out and he broke the kli before it landed. So the Gemara says is the person who put out the stick chayiv or not? The Gemara says it depends on whether we say basar mi'ikara azlinan or basar tovar mone azlinan. Do we consider the vessel as soon as it came off the rooftop as if it's already broken, because it's destined to be broken, it's already as broken, and therefore the person who put out the stick will not be chayiv? Or do we say basar tova mona azlina, that it's not considered broken until it's broken, and therefore he's chayiv al tzmazik? Now Rashi says that who was zorik the kli mirosh hagag? Rashi happens to talk out that it was the owner of the vessel that threw it off the rooftop. Nu, fragt sich the Frage, if the owner of the vessel threw it off the rooftop, so it's an aveda midas. I mean, how could we say, if we say that if somebody puts his wallet in the street, it becomes hefker, so the person who throws his kli, mirosh hagag, avada the kli becomes hefker. So why should it depend on basar mi kara azlina or basar tovar mona azlinon? It's the bechlal not, it's hefker. So says the Beis Halevi, and I'll read you his words. V'haposhut, the ad kan loy ka'amar hatur. It's simple that the Torah only said the nasu hefker rag b'meiniach kisoy b'rishus harabim v'lo yichpes leiklal ma'yoseba. Somebody puts his wallet in the street and he couldn't care less. What happens with it? That's hefker. Lo yichpes leiklal ma'yoseba im ye'oved im loy. Umshmachi svirle the nasu hefker. When somebody throws his own kli to break it, he still has a vested interest in this kli. He wants to break it until his tachlis, until his purpose is carried out. He's still maintaining a relationship with the kli. He didn't give it up. He's throwing it to break it. The eina yoytze mishus leklal. So therefore, it's not hefker. Hefker is when you become indifferent. But if you're breaking your kli, it's not hefker. It's not over until it's over, because you are actually involved with this kli. You're breaking it, so it's not hefker. So he says that was the vikuach between Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya and the Ahu Apikursa. The Apikoros said that we're in a state of ahadrinu more la'apemine, that our master turned his face away from us, meaning it's a hiniach kisei b'rishus harabim. I mean, we're hefker. He lost his interest in us. Said Rabbi Shua ben Levi, you got it all wrong. He wants to break us. He didn't give up on us. He's still very, very much involved with us. He's not indifferent. He's oid yodin to. So Itaka has a negative meaning, as the Maharsha points out, but that in itself is all positive, because that means that the Rebbeinu Shalom is still involved with us, and therefore it's like a Zora Kli Mirosh Agag, and not like a Hiniach Kisei B'Rishus Harabim. I want to add that Rashi says over there, Hahu Apikursa. Rashi says Apikursim. That Rashi says, what's an apikoros? Somebody that doesn't believe in the words of Chazal, like the tzedaikim. What does this argument have to do with believing in divrei Chazal or not believing in divrei Chazal? So, the Gemara says in Yoima, Daf Samach Tes, that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, Lama nikra shmom anshe knesses hagdola. Why do we refer to the anshe knesses hagdola as anshe knesses hagdola? She'echziru at Torah liyoshna. They restored the crown to what it once was. And what does that mean? He explains, because also Yirmiyah v'Omar, Moshe Rabbeinu said, "Okay, la godel hagibar v'anoir." Then came Yirmiyah and he said, Nochrim mekarkerin behecholoi. Ayei noiroisa. Where are his noiros? So lo yama noira. Yirmiyah stopped saying noira, because the goyim are in the heichel. Also, Daniel Omar Nochrim mishtabdim bebonov. Goyim are enslaving the Jews. Ayei gvuroisov. Where are his gevuros? Lo yama gibor. He deleted gibor. Also inu. Came the Anshe Knesset Agdola v'Amru Adirabe. He gvuroisav. That is an expression of the Rebbeinu Shalom's gvuros. Shekoy ve'shes ritzoynoi. that he controls his rotzen to help us, and he doesn't. The Elu Hey Noi Roisav, Shelemole Moiroi Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Heich Uma Achas Yichoylo Liskayim Ben Umas. How would one small Jewish people be able to continue to exist in such circumstances? That's an expression of Noirois. So you see, the Anshe Knesset Agdola, we call them Anshe Knesset Agdola for what? For putting back this Hokel HaGodol HaGibor Vanor. But, I mean, was that their main role and function in Jewish life? I mean, the Anshe Knesset Agdola are the transmitters of Torah Sheba'al Peh. So why would we call them based on one anecdote? I mean, on one particular thing that they restored the words of Hakel HaGodol HaGibor V'Hanor into the Shemoneh Esrei. I mean, that's l'chora not their main thing. But you know that the Gemara says that the Nevi'im, why did they stop saying HaGibor V'Hanor? The Gemara says, Mitoich sheyodu b'HaKadosh Baruch Hu shuhu amiti. They knew that the Rebbeinu Shalom is emes, is truthful. Therefore, they didn't want to lie. They didn't see the Gvuros. They didn't see the Nairois. They stopped saying it because they considered it to be a falsehood. And they wouldn't want to say something false to the Rebbeinu Shalom. So what was the idea that the Anshe Knesset Agdola brought it back? So the Chayr of the Pshat is because Nevuah is about taking reality as is. Prophecy is about seeing things as they are. And in the world of prophecy, the Navi is not allowed to get involved with interpretation. It's about what you see is what you get. Whereas Torah Sheba'al Peh, Chacham Adif Mi Navi, is about not just seeing reality as is, but having the ability, both in Torah and also in life, because Estakel Ba'oraisa Ubra Alma. Torah and life are two sides of the same story. Just like Torah Sheba'al Peh interprets psukim in a way that is not obvious, in a way that's not apparent, so also the Chachmei Torah Sheba'al Peh interpret reality in a way that's not obvious and not apparent. And therefore the Anshe Knesset Agdola, those that are the transmitters of Torah Sheba'al Peh, they are the ones that Ichziru HaTorah L'Yoshna, because they said, it doesn't seem like Gibor, it doesn't seem like Neura, but it is. And it's Adarabah. It's Adarabah. Hein Gvuroisav, hein Neuroisav. What seems to be the opposite of Gvura, the opposite of Neurois, happens to be a greater expression of Gibor and Neura than we've seen before. And therefore, the Ahuapi Kurse, She'eino Maminim B'divrei Chazal, which means the Tzedaikim, they follow the written letter of the law. They don't accept interpretation. They say, what you see is what you get. Ayin tachas ayin is kipshutoy. So the tzedaikim, just like in Torah, they see it as it is, so also in life they see it as it is, and they don't have the ability. They don't have the ability to see that oid yodoy netuya aleinu has a positive meaning. No, they see it as ame the ahadrinu more la'apemine, because that's what it seems like. But Rabbi Shua B'Chananya, who's in the Chachmei Yisrael, in the Chachmei Torah Sheba'al Peh, says that it seems like ame the ahadrinu more apemine, but it's not so. It's adarabah hein gvuroisav hein noroisav. It's oid yodoy netuya aleinu. He's very much involved with us. But often that we understand from this that the Chag and the Eivel are two sides of the same coin. They're both an expression of our ongoing relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. We have the Moyadim Tovim, and we have the Moyadim that are not Tovim. Lasid Lavai. All these Moyadim that are not Tovim will be transformed into Moyadim Tovim. It'll be V'afachti, not Chagechem, for the same reason that V'afachti Chagechem La'evel, because the Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't want to let go. So he doesn't turn our Chagim into just a regular day, but he actually turns our Chagim into an Eivel for the same reason the Eivel would be transformed into Chagim Losid Lavei. And that's the festive dimension that we see in Tishah B'Av. That's the festive dimension that we see in Avelus, because we understand that this way or that way, it's all about Moyed. It's all about having a connection with the Rebbeinu Shalom. And that's what's meaningful to us. Okay, Rabbi Isai, having said all that,